Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson's Facts Task Force held its first meeting this week, and one of the members of that group is Dr. Terry Stoops. He is the director of the Center for Effective Education at the John Locke Foundation. And Terry, first of all, remind us, what is this Facts group all about?
Lieutenant Governor Robinson created the Facts Task Force to give parents an opportunity to submit problematic instructional materials given to their students in public schools. Currently, there's really no way for a parent to effectively bring materials to the attention of elected officials in a way that an impartial group of experts can examine the materials and determine whether they require a further discussion. I think the idea is that so often parents go to a school board member or a school administrator with a complaint about instructional materials and find that very little is done about that because a school board member and a school administrator work for the school system. So finding a way for parents to talk about what their children are learning and talk about it with a group that is impartial and has examined the evidence before them is sort of the idea that the lieutenant governor had. And I was honored to be asked and, of course, accepted a position on that task force.
Now, the group was announced a few weeks back, but this week marked the first meeting. What were your impressions of what happened during this first gathering of the group?
Well, this first meeting was just given an overview of the submissions that have been provided thus far. And so far, the Lieutenant Governor's office has received 430 submissions. Now, of course, not all of them really rise to the level of concern that some may think they do. For example, there are some issues that a teacher really is just trying to get both sides of the story, even though the subject being discussed is something that a parent may not like. So there are plenty of those types of submissions that really won't require further action. But there are some troubling submissions that the task force received, and they essentially boiled down into three different categories. The first category is the sexualization of children. In other words, there are books and assignments that have to deal with LGBTQ, about transgenderism, and various concerns like that, especially in the elementary grades where students may not be equipped to be able to discuss those subjects. And of course, they often fall outside of the state curriculum to begin with. So it really does lead to the question of why it's included in the curriculum that teachers are providing to students in the first place. The second is lessons about critical race theory, and we've heard a lot about critical race theory. Basically, the theory that race undergirds and racism undergirds all of the disparities that we have in our society. There are plenty of examples of critical race theory being taught in public schools. There was one assignment, for example, that had students explore the idea of whiteness in science. There was another submission that talked about colorblind racism, basically saying that if you don't say anything about racism, you're essentially racist. And there were parents that complained about the assignment of critical race theory books in their child's public schools. So there is definitely a presence of critical race theory in public schools, and parents have identified those. And then the third is political shaming. These are individuals that felt their child was being singled out for their political views. Sometimes the child, and it seems that most often, according to the submissions that we received, that a child was discouraged from supporting President Trump or the Republican Party, or told biased things about Republicans and what they believe. So those are the three categories of problematic materials that have been received so far. And with the school year winding down, it's unlikely that the flow of submissions is going to continue through the summer. But it's my hope that this is an effort that continues into the next school year.
So you've had this meeting, you reviewed some of the submissions, you got the basic general categories that you just mentioned. What happens next?
Well, there's going to be some outreach now. The members of the commission, along with the Lieutenant Governor's office, is going to talk to school board members, county commissions, and school districts about some of the findings and basically discuss with them what can be done to address the concerns of parents. The legitimate concerns of parents that we've been able to identify in the materials, and we there's that process of outreach, but there's also following up with parents. Sometimes the submissions lack detail. And before we launch a discussion with county commissions and school boards and school district leaders, we want to make sure that we get all the facts. And so the idea is to follow up with parents and to talk to them about what they have reported to the facts task force and see if it really is rising to the level of necessitating a further discussion. And if it's not, we will assure that the parents that we will continue to take their concerns seriously, but it doesn't require further action. So this isn't a witch hunt. This isn't about going after teachers. This isn't about trying to silence teachers. This is about problem solving. And for those parents that identify legitimate problems in what their children are being taught, this facts task force is looking for solutions and looking to find these solutions in a way that is amicable for everyone involved. And that's what really, I think, is impressive about this task force to begin with, is that the idea is to solve problems, not to find martyrs and find individuals that will be subject to some type of government force or shaming.
Facts Task Force holding its first meeting this week. More meetings to come in the future. One of the members is Dr. Terry Stoops. He is the director of the Center for Effective Education at the John Locke Foundation. Thanks so much, Terry.
Thank you.